Hello and welcome back to the third episode of Overexplaining every boss in Earthbound, where I go one by one and and examine each boss in chronological order from Starman Junior all the way to Giygas. This episode I'll be talking about the Titanic ant. So first, as usual, let's start with the name. So Titanic is a synonym for big, and he's big, obviously. But another thing to note is that the word Titanic is in reference to the huge ship from the early 1900s called the Titanic. That went from that was a British ship that traveled between Britain and the United States of America. And it's most famous for being overestimated. The builders of it thought it could not get wrecked at all, but it turns out an iceberg really did the trick. It hit an iceberg and it sunk. So that may be the reason why Ness is thinking this would be called the Titanic ant. It's a big threat, but it can be taken down in some manner. And as for the ant part, that is an ant, has all the parts of an ant, but normally an ant's antennae aren't weirdly colored, but that actually is in reference to an enemy in the area where you find it, giant steppe. Those enemies being black antoids, they also have those things, but they're all black, while Titanic ant is a mix of gray and black. I'll get to his origin theory later, but anyway, let's look at the design. The clay model does look somewhat different from the battle sprite. It mostly in the teeth region and the eyes. As you can see, there's less black on the eyes of the clay model, and it has pincers in the clay model, unlike the battle sprite where it looks like it has normal teeth with an overbite. And his overworld sprite is this sparkle, and that's what every sanctuary guardian looks like on the overworld. Now for the context of where you fight him. So you get the key from Mayor Perkle, and you gain access to Giant Steppe through the Touring Entertainer's Shack. You travel through Giant Steppe fighting rats, black antoids, and slugs until you get to the Titanic ant. And as you get to the Titanic ant, you find more and more black antoids than any other enemy. So the black antoids are kind of at the top of the hierarchy in the giant steppe. So because this being itself is an ant, it was likely that a black antoid absorbed the power of giant steppe and became this monstrosity that was set to guard giant steppe. So no other ants could become like the Titanic ant. And its moves are nothing like the black antoids. So that's a good transition into the fight. So looking at his moves here, None of these attacks, none of the black antoids have these attacks. But interesting thing to note, he does have two black antoids in the fight with him, but they also don't act like normal black antoids. They only use life up alpha. So they could either heal the Titanic ant, or they could heal themselves. So anyway, let's get to the moves. Oh wait, no, another thing to mention. The black antoids don't have that much PP, so they can only use life up alpha so much. But anyway, Titanic Ant's moves. It has PSI Magnet Alpha, which steals your PP. It requires no PP from the Titanic Ant. Shield Alpha makes a physical shield, which can take 3 physical attacks from Ness, and halves the damage. Defense Down Alpha lowers Ness's defense. And now we get to the attacks. He has 2 biting attacks, one with low damage and one with high damage. And now we move to his stats. He has 235 hit points, which is a lot. 102 psychic points, 19 offense, 23 defense, 6 speed, 9 guts. So he's actually somewhat more likely to actually get a smash attack on you than other bosses, and he has no drops. This PP does allow for him to use Shield Alpha and Defense Down Alpha a lot, but those don't hurt Ness that much. So how do you beat the Titanic Ant? Well, as I mentioned earlier, it has 2 black antoids in the fight with him. So that would be a good opportunity to use PSI Rockin' Alpha, which should insta-kill the black antoids. But you need to be at level 8. So if you're not at level 8, I would highly recommend grinding. You'll usually be close to that level when you get to this boss. And once you have the black antoids killed, you'll likely have about 20 PP left. So I would recommend using Rockin' one more time, and then after that just bash him and heal when necessary, and he'll eventually die. I wouldn't recommend using it 3 times, because you need healing. You need it. Because he's kind of powerful. But anyway, once you defeat the Titanic Ant, you will gain access to the Giant Step Your Sanctuary location, because you defeated him and all that power that was absorbed from him went right back to the sanctuary and then right into Ness's Soundstone. So yeah, after that you leave Giant Step, and I'll get to what happens in the next episode. See ya.